Welcome to the Shepherd's Wallet podcast, financial guidance that speaks pastor. I'm Seth Scott, and I help ministry leaders navigate the unique financial complexities that come with answering God's call. Pastors face one of the most complex financial situations of any profession, yet there's a shocking lack of targeted, useful information available to help them. That's what we're here to change. If you've ever felt overwhelmed by housing allowances, confused by SECA taxes, or frustrated that generic financial advice doesn't address your unique ministry situation, you're in exactly the right place. If you've ever preached about biblical stewardship on Sunday morning and then felt guilty about your own financial struggles, this episode is for you. Today, we're talking about the toxic theology that keeps pastors from pursuing financial wisdom. And I'll introduce you to the 5-10-15 rule, a simple framework designed specifically for ministry families. Let's dive in. If you ever preached about biblical stewardship on Sunday morning, then came home and noticed the disconnect with your own financial reality, the escalating repair bills on your 2009 Honda Civic, the mountain of student loan debt that never seems to shrink, the sobering fact that you're in your late 40s and still haven't managed to save a single penny in your 403b. Raise your hand if you've felt guilty about that contradiction. Yeah, I see you. You'll teach your congregation about planning ahead, saving wisely, and providing for their families, all biblical principles, and then struggle with feeling like a hypocrite for wanting the same financial security for your own family. We've created this bizarre world where every Christian should steward their finances well, should build wealth for their families and for the kingdom, should enjoy financial margin and blessings, everyone except, for some reason, the person teaching them about it. If any of that resonates with you, you're definitely not alone. I've been serving alongside pastors in various ministry capacities for over 20 years, and I've had the privilege these past several years to serve pastoral families financially as well. And I can tell you this, the number one thing that keeps pastors from building financial security isn't lack of money, though that's definitely real for too many in ministry. It's guilt. That nagging voice that whispers, pastors shouldn't worry about money. They should trust in the Lord. All while you struggle to keep up with expenses, your credit card balance grows, and your retirement account stays frozen. Where does this voice come from? I'll tell you where it comes from. Everywhere. It can come from your own congregation. Margaret, bless her heart, who's occupied the same pew since the Mayflower landed, and who has the uncanny ability to communicate profound spiritual disappointment simply by pursing her lips. You know you'll see that look if, God forbid, you ever drive something into the church parking lot that's less than 5 years old. It can come from your board. When the subject of a long overdue cost of living increase comes up at a meeting, I bet at least one board member will suggest that a raise for the pastor might demonstrate a lack of contentment with God's provision, as if keeping up with inflation is somehow a spiritual failing. It comes from your own internal voice, the one that wonders if spending time on budgets and retirement planning means you're becoming too worldly, too focused on earthly things instead of heavenly ones. It comes from other pastors. It comes from the world. Ultimately, I believe it comes from the enemy himself. With all these voices coming at you from every direction, it's no wonder you feel deflated, dejected, and defeated when it comes to money. Not only is the tax code unfairly stacked against you, but you're beset on every side with this false, toxic theology that exempts you from materially enjoying the fruits of your spiritual labor. With most ministry decisions, you can pray for wisdom, stick to your convictions, and walk forward confidently regardless of what people think. But with money, somehow that judgmental voice finds its way into your head and sets up camp. It whispers questions that make you second-guess every financial decision, every moment you spend thinking about your family's future. Here's what I want you to know. It's not your fault you feel conflicted about this. Anyone in your position would struggle with these same tensions. When your calling is to serve others and your income depends on their generosity and goodwill, of course financial planning feels complicated. when you've been told, directly or indirectly, that spiritual maturity somehow eliminates normal human need for security and provision, of course you're going to feel guilty for wanting basic financial stability. But can I gently remind you of something you already know? The same God who called you to ministry is the one who inspired the wisdom literature, the one who gave us Proverbs 21:5 about the plans of the diligent, the one who had Jesus tell us the parable about counting the cost before building a tower. Paul worked as a tent maker not because he lacked faith, but because he understood that practical provision and spiritual calling work hand in hand. The early church chose deacons who were, quote, full of the Spirit and wisdom, specifically to handle financial matters, because financial stewardship requires both spiritual maturity and practical competence. The guilt you're feeling? That's not the Holy Spirit convicting you about stewardship. That's something else entirely. And it's keeping you from exercising the same biblical wisdom you'd counsel any member of your congregation to pursue. Look, if this is hitting home for you, you're not alone. I've got a free community built for pastors who are working through these exact same challenges. It's called the Sacred Capital Community, and you can join for free at shepherdswallet.com/join. No sales pitches, no pressure, just pastors supporting pastors in building financial security without compromising their calling. Here's the good news. Taking control of your financial situation doesn't have to be another burden on your already overwhelming schedule. You don't need to become a financial expert or spend hours every week managing investments. What you need is a simple, clear framework designed specifically for the unique complexities of pastoral life, something that acknowledges your irregular income, your unique tax situation, your unpredictable ministry transitions, and gives you concrete targets to work towards. I've spent years distilling financial security for pastors down to 3 simple numbers: 5, 10, and 15. Master these numbers, and you'll be well on your way to the peace that comes from having your financial house in order. Before we get into the details, if you've made it this far, please consider liking this video and subscribing to this channel. It really does help me reach more pastors who need specific, actionable financial guidance like this. So, let me introduce you to what I call the 5-10-15 rule. It's a framework I developed specifically for pastors that accounts for all your unique financial complexities while giving you clear, achievable targets. The 5 is for your emergency fund. 5 months of essential expenses in your emergency fund. Not total expenses, essential expenses. Housing, groceries, utilities, insurance, minimum debt payments, the stuff that keeps you alive and housed. Why 5 months instead of the typical 3 to 6? Because your income can be less predictable than secular employment. Church giving fluctuates with the economy. Ministry transitions sometimes happen with less notice. You need more cushion, not less. The 10 is for life insurance coverage. 10 times your annual income in life insurance coverage, including your housing allowance. This is a bit higher than standard recommendations because pastoral families often have unique vulnerabilities. Your spouse may have limited earning potential due to years supporting your ministry. Your family may not have the extended support networks that provide safety nets for others. Now, I recommend that each adult in the household have at least $150,000 in life insurance coverage, or $250,000 if there are kids living in the house, regardless of their income. And please, term life insurance. It's straightforward, affordable, and it's what most pastoral families actually need. The goal is to cover both you and your spouse until retirement, but if you can't afford a term that long, at least get covered until the kids are grown and out of the house. And be sure to get a guaranteed renewable policy so you can continue coverage when the term expires. The 15 is for retirement savings, 15% of your total compensation saved for retirement. Total compensation, salary, housing allowance, benefits, everything. 15% can sound overwhelming when you're already stretching every dollar, but time is your most powerful ally here, and starting as early as you can with something is better than waiting until everything feels perfect. A pastor who starts saving 15% at 25 will accumulate significantly more wealth than one who starts saving 20% at 40, even though that older pastor is saving a higher percentage. Now, if you've opted out of Social Security, we need to have a more difficult conversation. When you opt out, you're essentially telling the government, thanks, but I'll build my own safety net, which means your 5-10-15 rule becomes the 5-15-30 rule. Your emergency fund is still 5 months. However, your life insurance target is 12 to 15 times your income instead of 10, and your retirement savings 25 to 30% of your total income instead of 15. I can see some of you getting uncomfortable. 30%, that's impossible. I wish I could give you different numbers, I really do. But here's what you're replacing when you opt out. A pastor who would have received $2,000 a month in Social Security retirement benefits has essentially given up about $500,000 in lifetime benefits. Add in survivor benefits for your family, disability coverage, and Medicare eligibility, and you're looking at replacing $600,000 to $800,000 worth of government-backed security. That requires discipline, strategy, and significantly higher savings rates than most people maintain. It's not impossible, but it is substantial. I know these numbers can feel overwhelming, especially when you're already feeling behind, but before you panic, first, something is always better than nothing. If you can't immediately save 30%, start with 10% and commit to increasing it each year. Second, the 30% assumes total opt-out. If you can earn Social Security benefits through secular work, or if your spouse has benefits that cover both of you, your target drops significantly. But I need to be honest with you. These are where the numbers need to be when you're replacing substantial government benefits all by yourself. So let me tell you about Pastor Mike and Julie. They represent a mashup of several families I've worked with. Mike pastors a church of about 200 people and earns $55,000 in total compensation. Julie works part-time as a teacher's aide for $12,000. So total household income $67,000 with $3,000 a month in essential expenses and 2 kids living at home. Here's how we break down their 5, 10, 15 targets. Their emergency fund target, $15,000, 5 months of their $3,000 essential monthly expenses. Their total life insurance need, $550,000 on Mike and $250,000 on Julie, $800,000 total. A bit higher than 10 times income, but once the kids move out, Julie's coverage can drop to $150,000. And finally, their retirement savings target is $8,250 annually. Did these targets seem intimidating? Absolutely. Did they reach them overnight? Of course not. But having clear targets gave them something to work towards instead of just hoping things would somehow work out. 2 years later, they had $12,000 in their emergency fund, appropriate life insurance coverage set to term out when their youngest turns 21, and were consistently saving 12% for retirement with plans to hit 15% after Mike's next salary review. The key insight? They didn't wait until they could do everything perfectly before they started doing something consistently. So to recap, 5 months of expenses in your emergency fund, 10 times your individual income or minimum coverage amounts for life insurance, 15% of your total paycheck in retirement savings. That's the 5-10-15 rule that provides margin, protection, and peace of mind that frees you up to focus on your kingdom work, not your financial worries. Here's what I've discovered working with pastors who implement these principles. Financial security doesn't make you less spiritual, it makes you more effective in ministry. When you have adequate savings, you can accept ministry opportunities based on calling rather than desperation. When you have proper life insurance, families can be free to grieve without the added stress of financial ruin. When you're building wealth consistently, you model healthy stewardship for your congregation and build up more generosity opportunities for the kingdom. Imagine being able to accept a challenging church revitalization you know God is calling you to because you have the financial stability to take a temporary pay cut for work. Imagine sleeping through the night without financial anxiety about whether or not the car will break down tomorrow. And imagine the peace of mind of knowing your family will be taken care of if the Lord chose to call you home. Financial security creates the stability that frees you to serve God's people with your whole heart. It's not about accumulating wealth for its own sake. It's about creating the peace that comes from faithful stewardship. So here's what I want you to do. Right now, before you close this video, calculate your 5, 10, 15 targets. Here, I'll wait to give you a moment. Oh, wait, you can just pause the video. Silly me. Go ahead and do that and write your targets down. Don't worry about whether they seem achievable. Just get them on paper for now. As a reminder, your emergency fund target is 5 months of essential expenses. Your life insurance target is 10 times your annual compensation, 15 times if you've opted out, with a minimum of $150,000 or $250,000 per adult. And your retirement savings goal is 15% of your total annual compensation, or 25 to 30% if you are not going to receive Social Security benefits. Got it written down? Good. Now, pick one target and take one small step this week. This could be opening a high-yield savings account for your emergency fund, getting a free life insurance quote, or increasing your retirement contributions by 1%. Then, next week, take one more step. Then another the following week. Mark it on your calendar. Make it a priority. You don't have to figure everything out before you start doing something. You just have to start. And before you know it, you'll look back at weeks of little steps and praise God for the progress you've made. That guilt you've been carrying about wanting financial security, it's not conviction, it's condemnation. And as you know, condemnation does not come from the Lord. You have permission to pursue financial wisdom. Your calling to ministry doesn't disqualify you from financial security. It makes it even more important. Because when you're financially secure, you're free to focus on what matters most, the people God has called you to shepherd. Thanks for watching. If you would like help implementing this system, join the Sacred Capital community for free. Also, my upcoming book, Shepherding Your Finances, walks through all of this step-by-step with detailed guidance. Pre-order now and save 35% for a limited time. If you need personalized help, schedule a free coaching consultation at shepherdswallet.com/coaching. All links are in the description. Remember, faithful stewardship enhances your ministry. It doesn't diminish it. We'll see you next week. Thank you for joining me on the Shepherd's Wallet podcast. I hope these strategies help you steward your sacred capital with greater confidence and peace. If you found this helpful and would like to go deeper in your stewardship journey, join the Shepherd's Wallet community at shepherdswallet.com/join. You'll get weekly live Q&A sessions, pastor-specific financial tools, and a community of fellow ministry leaders committed to faithful stewardship together. Also, you can pre-order my upcoming book, Shepherding Your Finances. It's the comprehensive guide to everything we talk about on this show, plus implementation worksheets and strategies you won't find anywhere else. Pre-orders are 35% off for a limited time at shepherdingyourfinances.com. Thanks for listening, and remember, you are worthy of double honor, including the honor of proper financial guidance. See you next week.